Howdy, howdy, howdy. Hello, everybody. And as I said on the new update video for the Jimmy the Nerd, well, the Quest of Jimmy the Nerd game, update video for the game, whatever you want to call it, whatever I called it. I haven't titled it yet, so I've recorded it but not titled it. So whatever I ended up calling it, as I said in that video, I am also working on a new book on how to make an RPG. And just to go back over what I said in that video in case you watch this one first or you just are interested in this video to see what I'm talking about, because you're more interested in how to make an RPG than the one I am making. Basically, I noticed when I was looking at tutorial videos and things for RPG Maker, which is the software I use, because I always feel that if you're not trying to learn new things, then you're doing it wrong. So I always look for as much information as I can, different viewpoints and all that stuff, different takes on how to do things and whatnot. But I noticed that the video series that were available tended to come in one of two flavors. It was either graphics people or tips and tricks people. You know, the graphics people who think that the most important part of making a game is the graphics because that's their skill set that they're most familiar with. Or, in the case of some of the more unfortunate snobby elements within the RPG Maker community, they are so used to seeing the default assets and stuff in RPG Maker that they consider anything using those assets to be crap just because they use those. Which, it's nothing but snobbery, really. You know, there is an unfortunate problem with any tool like RPG Maker, in that because it is easy to use, people will try to make really, they will make really crappy games and try and push them off like they're really great games, or they think it's good, and then but it's really not very good at all. So RPG Maker has developed kind of a stigma, or has a stigma attached to it because of that. But at the same time, you know, there is a snobbish element within the RPG Maker community that tends to go attack dog and be dismissive of anything that doesn't fit their standards, as if their standards are the only ones that matter. And it usually comes down just to the graphic assets and changing words and other BS like that. But, you know, this isn't a video to rant. I'm just saying that, you know, you end up watching tutorial video series, and that tends to be one school of video series. You know, the people that make them are the ones who think that having lots and lots of customized graphics and stuff is the key to making good games in RPG Maker, or indeed games in general. Even though AAA studios have proven time and again that having even millions of dollars thrown into your graphics budget won't make your game better, especially if it's simply crap from the get-go because the story and or game mechanics are crap. Having lots of pretty graphics isn't going to help much. And the same goes for the ones who think knowing 1,001 or 1,000,001 tips and tricks in whatever given software or, you know, programming language that you're going to be using, that's the key to success. When to me, you know, my point of view as a storyteller, a writer, and music producer, but when it comes to games, my focus is always on the story and the game mechanics. Making the game look pretty isn't a bad thing, but it's always a secondary consideration for me. First, I think I consider the story and the mechanics. I always nail those down as best I can first to get exactly the feel, and I go for a certain atmosphere, you know, and everything like that. I get that down first when I'm making the game. And that is what I feel was missing. I couldn't really find anyone. I'm not saying nobody's done anything on these topics before, but I really couldn't find any. People that were actually tackling how to make an RPG, or indeed any kind of game, from scratch, from the ground up. Not necessarily from scratch. Like, even if you're using RPG Maker, because maybe you're like me and your background isn't in programming, and even though I do have a background in graphic design, I went to school for graphic design. My specialty, the thing that I'm better at, is graphics manipulation. I don't do artwork or pixel art or any of that stuff. I can manipulate graphics and edit graphics just fine. I'm good at that. But maybe you don't even have that skill set when it comes to graphics. So you're going into this focusing on something that you're good at. Hopefully you have some background. Because if you're just trying to dive headfirst into making a game and you don't have any background in anything related to game design, you're kind of going to be in trouble no matter what software you use. But you can get better over time. You make a game, learn from your mistakes, and you simply keep doing it till and get better at it. That's how any skill set is developed. You work at it, you screw up, and you learn from your screw ups, and then you learn by continuing to do it, and you get better over time. That's just how things work. So you can use this book, once I release it, of course, once it's finished and I release it, to help you, even if you have no skill set whatsoever. But going back to what I was saying, what I felt was missing is that nobody takes you through the process from the very beginning. As in, having an idea all the way through outlining your game. That is what this book is going to cover, is how to properly outline a game. So you never get stuck, because I find that that's something that a lot of people have trouble with. They'll start making a game, but they don't have a clear direction that they want to move in, so they'll get stuck, like writer's block. If you don't know where you're going, it's harder to get there. I'm going to help you get through the process and understand the process of creating your roadmap. That doesn't mean that you have to stay on the map every step of the way. In fact, that's just as stifling as not having a map at all. Or rather, that not having a map at all might feel more free, but then you can get lost a lot easier. Whereas if you do have a map, you can always take side trips. You don't have to stick directly to your map, but you're a lot less likely to get lost if you have one. So that's what this book is really going to be about. So the different sections, and I've rearranged some of them from my list here. But basically I'm going to be going over having your ideas, and some of these sections to start with are going to be short, a few paragraphs even, because I want to get across just the basic process of going through all of these steps, and then after I do that, there will be a much bigger section where we actually go through the entire process, at least hypothetically, and with some mapping and stuff in RPG Maker and other things in RPG Maker, which I'll do videos for. It's just that I won't have any voiceover on those videos. They'll be free for everybody to watch on YouTube probably, but unless you have the book, you won't know what I'm actually talking about. So, and I'm only going to put the book up for about $10. My projection is probably around a 300-page book at this point, so it'll be worth it. And you'll be able to use it not only for making RPGs, you can use it as a resource for making any kind of game. I am going really generalized on some of this stuff and covering basic stuff. You can use it as game development resource, you can use it as a pen and paper RPG resource, you can use it as a writing resource. I am including an entire large section on horror fiction, which is based around a blog post I wrote. I already have the videos up on YouTube. You can go check those out. But along with the videos on writing horror fiction and horror game development that I have up, I also wrote a bunch of blog posts to go along with those videos. But I no longer have them available online, so I took them and I've reworked them into a really good long section on horror fiction that will be in this book. So you'll be able to use it as a resource for writing horror fiction and or horror game development, because I go pretty in-depth on some of the psychological aspects and stuff of horror. But as I said, I want to take you through the entire process. And first, the first few sections are not necessarily chapters, but segments or sections of the book will be things like idea, brainstorming, type of game you want to make, the characters, their classes and professions, the world, your setting, story basics, plots. That's where from there I go into horror fiction, and I cover I'm going to be covering things like cliches and all that sort of stuff, and then steps in the journey, getting started on actually outlining the game. Then from there, I'm going to go into puzzles and doing your combat and your enemies, your dungeons, your NPCs, towns, side quests, skills, weapons, armor, items, artifacts. But up in the plot area, I have a little section on themes and symbology. I'm going to talk a bit about music in games, and I'm going to go over a couple of basic templates for games, for designing your games. My plan is to do like a really short one, then an expanded template, and maybe a long template. And when I say template, I don't mean copy this exactly. I mean just something to kind of show how you can plan out your game as part of your outlining. And then the final section, which will actually be the bulk of the book probably, it should be, will be actually going back through every last one of these things for a hypothetical project, complete with the videos online you'll be able to watch and follow along with the video, with the book, covering all that stuff. So we'll go through your idea, the brainstorming, the type of game, all of that stuff I just talked about. It will cover all of it and actually give examples by creating basically creating a game outline and going through the whole process with you, so you can get it, not only the theory, but see it in action. So I'm working on this because I kind of got burnt out on working on Jimmy the Nerd, and my plan, because when I start to feel like when I'm working on a project and it starts feeling like a chore, that's a sign to me that I need to work on something else for a while, take a break. So my plan is that when the book starts feeling like a chore, I'll go back to the game for a while and then bounce back and forth until the book will definitely get done first. But that is the plan. I do not have an ETA on the book. I'm up to puzzles, so out of the 27 segments here, and definitely not even the longest one, I'm only up to number 9-ish. Although, since I rearranged some of these, like themes and symbology was down at 22, and I moved it up around plots and stuff like that. I moved some things around, and the templates, what I had is separate sections, but I've actually moved that further up too and made it into one section. I think I combined it in with steps in the journey, so for the outlining part. So I've rearranged things a bit, but I'm only maybe a third of the way through. And I'm sitting at about 116 pages at this point. Although a really hefty portion of that is the horror fiction stuff. Because horror fiction is a hobby of mine, so I already had a lot of material on the subject that I could include in the book. But yeah, once it's done, it will be a complete resource, as I said, for specifically how to make RPGs. That is going to be the focus of the book, but you can apply a lot of what I'm going to be talking about to any kind of genre. But the more closely related to RPGs the genre is, the more applicable the stuff I'll be talking about will be. Like a first-person shooter, these days they have a lot of things in common with RPGs. There tends to be a form of character progression, with like power-ups or new armor and gear and whatnot, as well as a lot of storytelling elements and a lot of things in common with RPGs. The difference is really the game mechanics, more than anything. And some RPGs have very FPS style game mechanics, so there's a lot of crossover with RPGs and other genres. So a lot of what I'll be talking about in this will be applicable to other genres. And like I said, you can use it as a writing resource because I do go into just basic things that pertain to writing in general, not just writing plots and doing plots and stuff for games. Because you could apply a lot of this stuff to writing TV shows and movies even. And then, of course, you could also use it as a dungeon master, game master for doing pen and paper RPG. So it'll be a pretty comprehensive resource once it's finished. And that pretty much covers that project. Thanks for watching the video, listening to what I had to say, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.